Hi, I'm Amita. Come right with me. We've been doing a series on point of view, and I hope that you have looked at my other posts on point of view. When we're writing fiction or non-fiction, we need a point of view, right? We need a point of view character, which means that the character writes either as I did this, we did this, which is the first person point of view. They write she did this, he did this, or they did this. That's a third person point of view. And I'm going to do now a second person point of view, which is very, very rare, and it's not something to be trifled with, I'll just say. But I am going to just show you what it does. So I'm going to read a little excerpt from this novel called Spill, Simmer, Falter, Wither. What a great name. And it's by Sarah Baum. And I'm just going to show you what a second person point of view sounds like. Let's have a look. You're all on your own in a solitary confinement kennel by the recycling bins. You growl as the kennel keeper grabs you by the scruff and buckles the collar, but you don't snap. And when you walk, there's no violence, no malice in the way you move. There's nothing of the pariah I expected. You are leaning now, nearly dragging your body along the ground, as though carrying a great lump of fear. Easy now, the kennel's keeper tells you. Easy. Okay. I'm going to give you another example in a minute, and you can see the difference between the two. Excuse me. Here, there is still an I there as well, if you notice. So there's nothing of the pariah I expected, right? So if you look at it like that, even though in this particular segment, the author is addressing another point of view character, so another character, not another point of view character, another character by calling them you, there is still the I. So in that sense, this is still a first person, but what the author is doing is, they could have just said he. So they could have said, he is on his own in a solitary confinement kennel by the recycling bins. He growls as the kennel keeper grabs him by the scruff, right? So the writer could have done that. So the narrator could still be in first person. There's nothing of the pariah I expected, but they could be talking about this other character as a he or a she or a they. Instead of that, they address the character as a you. You're all on your own in a solitary confinement kennel by the recycling bins, right? What this does to me, I've done this in workshops many, many times where I give examples of, this kind of point of view, the you point of view. And I think what it does is that it brings, because we're addressing someone as you, it brings the reader into the story, it drags the reader into the story in a slightly different way than if we had used the he, she, they. So that is something worth thinking about. The you point of view is very, very sparingly used, but what it does is it draws the reader a little bit closer to the action. I'll give you another example. Here, you'll see there is no I in the sense of, in the previous Sarah Baum's example. This is by Chimamanda Adichie, and it's a short story called Tomorrow is Too Far, and it's the first paragraph. It was the last summer you spent in Nigeria, the summer before your parents' divorce. Before your mother swore you would never again set foot in Nigeria to see your father's family, especially not Grandmama. You remember the heat of that summer clearly, even now, 13 years later. The way Grandmama's yard felt like a steamy bathroom. A yard with so many trees that the telephone wire was tangled in leaves, and different branches touched one another, and sometimes mangoes appeared on cashew trees and guavas on mango trees. Right? Did you notice the you here? It's different from the previous one. The previous one, we realized that the author has a I point of view. So the narrator talks about themselves as I, but they are addressing another character in the book as a you. Now, this is used quite often, more often than this one that I just showed you by Chimamanda, where in fact, there is no other character that this narrator is referring to. They are talking to themselves as a you. That's pretty skillful, and it's pretty damn rare. So listen to it. It was the last summer you spent in Nigeria, the summer before your parents' divorce. Notice that, because it could have just been a first person point of view, in which case it would have been, it was the last summer I spent in Nigeria, the summer before my parents' divorce, right? But the author has chosen to address themselves as a you. It was the last summer you spent in Nigeria, the summer before your parents' divorce, before your mother swore, right? So what does that do? It still has the effect that we noticed in the previous excerpt, where you draw the reader closer to the action. You say, actually, you become a part of the story, because when someone addresses anyone as you, we read it as they're addressing us, right? So even if the narrator is addressing another character or they're addressing themselves, what happens is that the reader enters the story in a slightly different way, in a slightly more, almost like a forceful way, right? You are implicated in the story in a slightly more slightly closer way than maybe you anticipated. So keep that in mind, that it's a rarely used point of view. We don't use it lightly. We use it for very strong effect. So in the first case, the effect seemed to be that it drew this other character, a dog, closer to the narrator, who's a human, and it kind of put you, the reader, in this mix, in this kind of connection and relationship between this person and the dog that they're looking at. In the second one, when the narrator says, it was the last summer you spent in Nigeria, you as the reader enter the story, but it also has the effect of showing you that the author finds this particular incident hard to talk about. I've noticed myself doing this, that when I'm talking about a difficult memory with somebody, with a friend, I sometimes slip into the second person point of view. I say, well, you process it like this, don't you? Well, you think about that memory like this, don't you? So I'm going into the you because I'm talking about a difficult or traumatic or whatever memory that I'm finding a bit too hard to say I, right? And I say you instead. So there is a distancing thing that happens from yourself, whereas there is a closeness and a connection that happens and a bonding that happens with the reader. So it is but it's quite a forceful thing. It's something where you should really only very sparingly use it, and especially when you're trying to have some form of powerful impact where you think, actually, if I play with this point of view, I drag the reader into it a bit differently, and I perhaps process the stuff that I'm talking about in a kind of a harder, harsher way, almost in a up close and personal, slightly almost, I don't want to use the word threatening, but it's almost a little bit, it's too close for comfort. And I think that is what they're going for. So have a think about, again, have a play. It's always good to try out these things and see if they work for you. Don't use it lightly with a second person point of view. Try it with something shorter first and see what you think and what impact it has. How does it make it sort of almost a bit too hard to deal with when it's a second person point of view? So think about it and try it and see how you get on. And do check out my other posts on point of view and other sorts of craft techniques that I enjoy talking about. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. It's free and it means that I can keep on giving you this content and you will never miss a post. Do stay tuned and thank you for listening today. It was good to talk to you.